me to practice real estate. I was already promoting the properties through my platform and thought that it would be great to also include the service of sales. It has just been about 5 years in the industry now, with multiple awards and recognition among the best in the field and others related to it. I now oversee my own team of 3 real estate advisors, one including myself, and a client manager. I promise you this presentation will be extremely informative, and we will get into a lot of topics, and I will provide some statistics about the real estate market here in the Bahamas. So let's get into it. It's really basic. The very first part of this presentation will be very general. Defining the term real estate. Real estate is obviously the property, land, buildings, air rights above the land and underground rights below the land. So the term real estate means real or physical property. There are 4 types of real estate. There's residential, commercial, industrial, and land. Residential real estate is the only one that I'm really going to define. And it includes both new construction and resale homes. The most common categories of this are single-family homes, townhomes, condominiums, and apartment buildings like duplexes. Another one I actually do want to go into really defining is land, which seems straightforward, but it really isn't always. So land, which as it indicates is vacant land, working farms, and ranches. The subcategories with vacant land include undeveloped or early development. So with early development land, that could include a piece of property that you're just getting started to work on. So you may have a small foundation or just started working on the property, but that is still considered vacant land and it's not completely developed as yet. So this part of my presentation, I'm going to talk about the thriving Bahamas real estate market. It really is. A lot of persons don't know how really strong the Bahamas industry is. The Bahamas is actually the 3rd richest country in North America. Ranked behind the United States and Canada, the small Caribbean country is the 3rd richest among them all. The Bahamas is actually also a tax haven for all investors. So the Bahamas' tax system is world famous for not taxing income, personal or corporate, capital gains, wealth, or inheritance. So it is really a part of the reason, the way that our system is structured, it's part of the reason why we have so many wealthy individuals coming to the Bahamas and seeking properties here as well, seeking properties in the Bahamas. Our close proximity to the United States is a part of the reason why the Bahamas is so thriving as well. It's minutes away from Miami and Fort Lauderdale, as you know. The Bahamas offers island living with convenience of easy reach to the continental US. Served by all major carriers, the Bahamas is easily accessible from anywhere in the world. So I'm going to go in. I know this slide looks like a lot of information, but I'm going to get through it rather quickly so that we can get into the fun part. After this, we're going to look at some listings, and I'm going to share some bonus information with everyone. So the Bahamas is well known around the world as an attractive location for investment, a little of what I just said before. Its stable economy, relative wealth, and favorable tax laws make it a safe and relatively easy to enter market for those that want to invest in real estate. Although the Bahamas' property prices dropped significantly during the global financial crisis of 2008-2009, as they did in other countries, the market has since stabilized with middle to high-end properties increasing in value. Like most countries, the Bahamas is home to people in a wide range of social classes, and pricing in the real estate market truly reflects that. Real estate prices in the Bahamas are, on average, 37% higher than other locations in the Caribbean. This shows its popularity with luxury home buyers. Ideally, as the prices move up on one end of the market, it forces the other end to do so as well. So consider the house that you're living in, let's say, for instance, Nassau. right? You're living in a house that's probably, let's say for instance, $350,000, the value of it. Consider the fact that in any other Caribbean country, you can get that exact same house for 37% less than what you're living in the Bahamas. That just goes to show you really where our market is in comparison with other Caribbean countries and other global markets around the world. The population of the Bahamas is just under 400,000, most of whom live in Nassau, leaving room for new developments and many other opportunities to receive a generous return on investment, like long and short-term rental properties. With finance as our second largest industry, access to reliable financial institutions for mortgages isn't hard to find. For those that qualify, the government continues to take steps to accommodate domestic home buyers and maintain the country's status as an attractive destination for domestic and foreign investors. Choosing the right location is a critical step in your journey to entering the Bahamas' real estate market. Of course, where you choose to buy will likely be dictated by the type of property you're looking for. Many persons choose their home's location based on proximity to family, their children's schools, and of course, affordability. So this image that I'm showing here on this slide kind of introduces where I'm going with the rest of my information as it relates to Bahamas' real estate market. This image here is an advertisement from 1936. It was shared with me about 2 to 3 days ago. And it shows private islands in the Bahamas in 1936 being sold for around $2,000. Now imagine in 1936 being able to purchase a private island in the Bahamas for $2,000, minimum $2,000. So it brings me here. I'm particularly big on out-island investment opportunities for Bahamians. A lot of persons don't know that for the price of a used or new car, they can purchase a property in Exuma, Eleuthera, or Cat Island. These locations are big target points for vacation homeowners. I would highly recommend acquiring, if only a parcel, on one of these islands. As the outer islands begin to develop over the coming years with new resorts, golf courses, and other offerings, value of the properties will definitely increase. I am certain generations to follow will be delighted to have property on the outer islands passed down to them. It'll be a big bonus to having a house in Nassau, which I often consider the big city when compared to the peace and serenity offered on the other islands. In many other locations around the world, individuals would often have a house in the city for work and a vacation property or cottage further out. One of the main points today is to encourage you not only to seek a house in Nassau, but a property on one of the other islands as well, which you can rent out if you decide to develop it and generate additional income when you're not there. So what I'm going to do right now is stop right here, and I'm going to share my screen with you of some listings in, because I know we can talk about Nassau, the real estate market in Nassau all day. I know many of you may already be familiar with what property values are like in Nassau. But today I just want to pinpoint and kind of highlight what you can really get on these other islands as it relates to vacant land. So one second as I share my screen. So I'm sharing my screen with you to show a few vacant properties you can get in Eleuthera for around $10,000. This is what the market looks like. I mean, if you want, at the end of this, we can look at some vacant land in Nassau. That's really easy. But, you know, I want to really bring your eyes over to the out islands of the Bahamas as well. So we're looking at now, I just did a general search for vacant land in Eleuthera. And what I did was I sorted it from lowest to highest price point. You're getting around 0.22 lot acreage size. So that's anywhere from 10 to 12,000 square feet and above you can get in Eleuthera for minimum $10,000. So I'm going to switch over to Exuma, which definitely many of you enjoy. And I know a lot of persons like to go over to Exuma and kind of just hang out and chill, but how nice would it be to actually own a piece of property in Exuma, right?
So I have a question.
Sure.
These are these post or what I'm trying to ask is this before COVID or it really doesn't matter?
These properties that are on the market now, these are actual active listings. It's not really related to pre or post COVID. I know a lot of persons are really sitting back and wondering if prices on the market will drop because of COVID-19.
Right.
I can say with confidence that, I mean, as it stands right now, the Bahamas real estate market is very strong. I haven't seen one client, I mean, unless the property was really priced too high, I haven't seen anyone really budge on their asking price. Actually, some properties in Nassau, there was a listing we had for, let's say, I think it was $250,000. And during COVID-19, that listing actually went under contract for full ask. Like, there's no budging with the market right now. So these properties that I'm showing you are active listings at active prices. But what I will share later down is that the listing prices are generally always scaled off by 10% of the asking price. So if you see a property that's listed for, let's say, $100,000, you can already kind of generalize where you can go in and negotiate. It's on average, you can negotiate about $10,000 off that asking price with the seller and really get that accepted to move into contract with that. Does that answer the question, Steph?
It sure does.
Okay, perfect. So a little bit more about the market, and I'm just going to go to it from the perspective or looking at Nassau's real estate market. I know I just went through Eleuthera and Exuma, just looking at vacant land options. But I want to show, based on the MLS, what the highest price point listings are in Nassau for single family homes. And I have it shared here. Everyone, or most persons, are familiar with the gated communities of Ocean Club Estates, Old Fort Bay. These properties that are listed in luxury communities are well on and can be compared to properties that are listed all around the world. For $39 million, you can get a condo or a property inside New York as well. So not only does the Bahamas' real estate market, not only does the Bahamas' dollar par with the strong dollar of the US, but the market also is on par with their market as well. So I'm going to go back to that private island point that I shared, because I think when I saw it, it was really fun, right? $2,000 for a private island. So I want to show you now what private islands in the Bahamas are going for. There's no private island that you can get for $2,000. Some listings we have, let's say for instance, KFT is listed at about 65 million. These listings that are showing now are strictly from the MLS, so it won't be showing right. Some of the listings aren't showing. So for instance, we have private islands in Abaco for 17 million, 9 million, 4 million. There's definitely no $2,000 private island. So this just goes to show that land is a very safe investment, and it will always be for years and years to come. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen so that I can go right back into my presentation. Actually, while I have this up, I want to stop and see if anyone has any other questions as it relates to the Bahamas real estate market while I have the listings showing Any questions on Nassau, Exuma, Eleuthera? I'm going to look in the chat. I'll just give it 2
How
minutes
is
before we
the
switch over. Sorry, Steph?
Shamon? Hello?
Go ahead, Andre. Go
No.
ahead, Andre.
As it relates to, I know a lot of people, they buy real estate, especially in those type of markets for vacation rentals and I guess the short-term market. How do you feel about that market right now? Do you feel as though persons who would have, I mean, this may be off topic from what it is that you were presenting, but if in, let's just say, an event that persons who were renting their places out to foreigners or people that travel into the country for a short period of time, right?
Yeah.
Do you think those persons have, because there is a shortage of quality rentals in Nassau, because a lot of persons who did have those locations that persons would like to rent out, they put them on Airbnb and the likes. Do you see that those persons have changed their approach and now have opened up to, I guess, a more long-term type of tenant, or is that something that you want to address later on in this presentation?
Well, actually, I will be talking about the different investment options, but I can kind of talk about it a little bit now. As it relates to vacation rentals and, let's say, COVID-19, persons that would have had their properties on the short-term rental market. We actually manage a few short-term rental properties now. And what we found with our clients over the past 2 months, we had one client that considered putting their property back on long-term, and they said no to it and would prefer to wait things out rather than doing a long-term rental. A lot of persons that purchase properties for short-term rental, they purchase their property for short-term rental with that solely in mind. Like they want the option and the flexibility of being able to come down and visit their property and have some place to stay for a period of time versus having someone in there for long term and they don't have any access to it.
Okay.
So for the properties that we do manage, we haven't had anyone who said, I want to take the long-term rental way and we will wait things out. Everyone wants to see what's going on. And as it relates to short-term rental properties, with some motion back in the market, we're seeing a lot of our properties that were on the market for short-term rental, a lot more Bahamians are now reaching out and probably need some time away from where they've been for a long period, and they themselves are now looking to find more domestic retreats. So persons who do still have those properties are going to get that momentum back very quickly.
Okay, just as one last question. I saw where you showed the deals that they have on the islands, especially those vacant properties. I have two questions.
Sure.
One, do those properties have existing infrastructure? And by infrastructure, for persons who may not understand what that is that's like regular amenities like water. Access to water. I think that's the poles on the road in terms of electricity and lighting. And then two, my second question is it possible for people to partner? Let's just say if I'm not family or friend, if I'm not family to someone or if I'm not married to someone, can I partner with a friend and we put up to buy these properties that you're showing?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
if we can, how would you suggest
going
that?
about it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me tackle the first question, which is, do these properties have infrastructure? A lot of the properties at Exuma that are priced low, and when I say low, fairly, like $15,000, a lot of them do have infrastructure in place already. Or they're close enough where infrastructure can easily be put in place. Like they're not too far off.
Because you could put a well and solar power on a property, if not, right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely easy. And a lot of these properties are in very close proximity to beaches as well. So they make them very attractive. In addition to that, in Exuma and Eleuthera especially, there are so many elevated properties that you can get. Like in Nassau, the majority of the land in Nassau is very, very low. But if you go on the out islands, you're going to find properties that are elevated like 50 feet above the water, 25 feet above the water. You're going to get some really, really good property for what you're purchasing. So it's definitely something to consider. And like I said, that's the reason why I wanted to bring out island properties to the forefront versus always talking about Nassau.
Yeah.
And then also, as it relates to your second question about how you can partner with individuals. There are so many different financing opportunities right now in Nassau. We have put together, I know a more stronger opinion on that could come from a loan officer if you want to go through the route of financing through banking institutions. But there are a lot of lending outlets in Nassau that would actually approve loans for, because really what you would have to do is put together a business or a corporation, come together, and then go out and seek financing for this project or single family home, or let's say a private luxury villa that you want to do on the out island.
Nice.
It's very easy to achieve those things, but you really just have to come together, have the plan, have the legalities in place in order to get the approval. But it's easy to get it done. Okay, and how likely is it to bring down the listing price? It really depends on the property, to be honest, Marissa. It depends on the property. Some properties and, well, vendors, depending on the market that you're in, if you're anywhere in between that $150,000 to $300,000 price point, you're not going to get that much budge from vendors because that market right there is so hot. A lot of the Haymans are looking at where and what they can purchase within that price point. 150,000, 300,000. That's a sweet spot. That's the hot spot. So many sellers aren't negotiating within that price point. Or if they are negotiating, it's minimum $5,000, $10,000 off. That is really a seller's market. But if you go anywhere above 350,000 to, let's say, $1 million, that market there is where you would find a little bit more wiggle room to negotiate. Above $1.5 million, there's not much room to wiggle there either because that is also a strong market. So there are two strong markets. 150,000 to 300,000, strong. You're not going to get much wiggle room. Anything above 1 million, 1.5,
income.
Sorry. Anywhere between 1 million, 1.5, it's going to be very strong and not much room for negotiation because there's not much inventory on the market there. And we have so many clients that come in and want to spend around that 1.5 price point that persons around there are also very strong. The minimum you can probably get off is around that same 10 to 15% off with negotiating. How easy is it to convert a single family property to multifamily? You would definitely have to get approval from town planning to convert. If it's a very large single family property and it is in proximity to other multifamily properties, then it's likely for you to get approval. But if it's a smaller single family property and surrounded by more single family properties, you're not really going to get approval. You will find it less likely, let me say, less likely to get approval to move that to multifamily. So I'm really excited about those questions, very excited. So I'm going to find my way back to my presentation, wherever it may be. 1 second. Oh, there it is. So this part of the presentation, we're going to talk about real estate costs for buyers and sellers. I'm going to get through it rather quickly and not give so much information, but I think this is a really important part for persons that are coming into the market. A lot of clients who I deal with that are first-time home buyers, they're not sure where to start. And I think real estate costs and the transaction stages are the most important points that you can get for when you're starting or just wanting to enter the real estate market. So the government stamp tax is a graduated tax payable on the conveyance of all real property in the Bahamas. Up to and including $20,000, you pay the government 4%. Any land between $20,000 and $50,000, you would pay the government 6%. And from $50,000 to $100,000, 8%. Anything over $100,000, 10%. This government stamp tax is a tax that you pay the government when you're closing or selling a property. And this stamp tax is also divided between the buyer and the seller. So if you're purchasing a property for, again, let's say $100,000, then 10% of that is owed to the government. 5% you pay, 5% the seller pay, or vice versa. With real estate brokerage fees, it is always and most often the seller's responsibility to pay unless the deal is being negotiated on the net. Most real estate transactions are negotiated on the gross. So the commissions on properties for unimproved properties, that's vacant land, the seller would pay the real estate agent, myself, my team, 10%. On anything that is developed, the seller would pay the real estate agent 6%. So if you're selling a vacant land, $100,000, 10% is owed to the real estate brokerage. If you're selling a house, 6% is owed to the real estate brokerage. Legal fees. Each party has to take care of their own legal fees in a real estate transaction. And real estate fees can vary, but average around 2.5% of the selling price. There is also a small recording fee when the title deeds are recorded at the public registry. And as I mentioned, the legal fee, it's also always important to make certain that you have your own attorney. I know some clients want to find ways to save more. A buyer may say, hey, I would be okay with using your attorney. I never recommend it. I feel as though, I strongly believe if you're purchasing a property, you should have you should have an attorney that's representing you. You want to make certain that they're doing their due diligence to make certain that the title is clean and everything is in order for your real estate purchase. And then real property taxes for when you would have already purchased that property. Any property that is up to $250,000 is exempted from real property tax. Anything between $250,000 to $500,000, you pay 0.75% annually. Anything between $500,000 to $5 million, you pay 1% on that property annually. And on the part that exceeds $5 million, you pay 0.25%. So if you have a property that's valued at, let's say, $17 million, the first $250,000 you pay no tax on. The part between $250,000 to $500,000, you pay the government 0.75. And the part between $500,000 to $5 million, you pay 1%. And the part above $5 million, you pay 0.25%. So that's how that works when it comes to real property tax, which is owed to the government on an annual basis. I hope everyone's enjoying this information. I'm having fun sharing it. So the stages of the transaction. Again, very important for anyone that's coming into the real estate market as a first-time home buyer, or also for foreign investors as well. So the first point or the first stage of a real estate transaction is mortgage pre-approval. It's really imperative. It's extremely important to know what value of the home can I purchase. To know this, you would first speak with a mortgage officer at your desired bank. I always recommend shopping around for the best interest rates and offers. For instance, First Caribbean allows you to pay 5% down on home purchases. versus RBC that would require a 10% down payment. Each one of those banks offer different interest rates, so you would be able to make a decision based on that. Would I want to come up with 5 or 10% cash? Who offers the best interest rate for where I am right now? Then the second stage is starting your search. Sometimes it takes a while, like 2 to 3 years, to find the perfect property. I have really worked with clients up to maybe 2 to 3 years to find the right property. On the other hand, some individuals come on the market and are lucky enough to find a home that works for them almost immediately. The process can be tedious depending on the side of the market you're on. So choosing a realtor that will put the time to assist with helping you find the right thing is very, very important. The third stage of the transaction. So we've covered being pre-approved. The second stage was searching for the property. And the third stage is the offer letter and the deposit. Sometimes individuals come to the market not knowing that you have to submit a cash deposit when you want to purchase a property. As I mentioned, some banks allow you to pay 5% on the purchase price. Other banks require you to pay 10%. That means in a property that's valued at $150,000, for instance, if you want to get a house that may require some renovation and the cost of it is $150,000, a bank may require you to put 5% down. That's $7,500 you have to have in cash to put down on that house. Or some other bank may require you to put 10% down, as I mentioned. Once you have found the home of your dreams or the one that can be renovated into it, it'll be time to negotiate. Depending on the market, it is typical for at least 10% of the asking price to be scaled off. I shared that a bit earlier as well. In other cases, some properties come to market at just the right number, and they can be firm on the asking price. Again, properties between 100, 150,000 up to 300,000, homes that are on the market there, that's really a strong, strong market. It is our responsibility as your real estate advisors / agents to draft the offer letter, whether representing buyer and or seller, which we have in many cases. When the numbers are finalized between both parties, the offer letter is then fully executed. And I'll share a little bit as it relates to this period of COVID that we're in as well. We have actually, and even before, we have actually put properties under offer, under contract, sight unseen, even during COVID. I just want to share with you the strength of the market. Even during COVID-19, persons are still inquiring on properties, and they're making offers on properties without even setting foot inside the property. That is how strong the Bahamas' real estate market is. This does not even just include Nassau. This goes to Exuma, Cat Island, beachfront properties, any value you can think of. Persons, individuals are still shopping around, still submitting offers, still purchasing. The Bahamas real estate market will remain strong after this as well. Stage 4, the appraisal. Banks require an updated appraisal on the property you'll be purchasing. This is mandatory. Appraisals for single-family homes can start around $350,000, depending on the home specs. Some appraisers like to charge based on where the property is located. You know, if it's located in a really good area, you may get an appraise, a value higher than $350. Just letting you know, I'm not an appraiser. It is common for sellers to have had their home appraised before bringing it to the market, but it is the buyer's responsibility to have an appraisal of their own. So though the property is coming to the market at a value, the bank is still going to ask you to get your own appraisal done. So there are 8 stages of the transaction that I've outlined. We have 4 more to go through, and then I'll get some questions as relates to the real estate costs, taxes, and the stages of the transaction. The sales agreement, a very, very crucial stage of all real estate transactions. By this time, you would have already selected your attorney. In a case where you don't have one, we would also provide a list of recommendations. Depending on the property and bank you'll be financing with, a 5 to 10% cash deposit will be required at this time. So once you would have submitted that offer, you signed off on your offer letter, those details are sent off to your attorney. The vendor's attorney prepares the draft sales agreement. It is time for you now to submit that cash deposit to your attorney because the deal is then going through. Once all is in place and details of the agreement are accurate, there's the signing. At this point, you'll be officially under contract. So sometimes you would see myself or other real estate agents sharing information on a property that's under contract. This is what that means. This is directly after the sales agreement has been executed, and then the buyer is moving on to their loan application. Along with the appraisal, there are a number of other documents your mortgage officer will require of you to complete your financing application. Among these documents will be your confirmation of employment, the sales agreement, insurance, and other related information. It typically takes financial institutions 2 weeks to revert back with confirmation of your mortgage approval. I have sometimes seen it take much longer than that, but I'm not going to get into all of the different logistics and parts of the transaction. Number 7, stage 7 is the title search and the conveyance. This is when you're really wrapping up that deal. You found the property, you're sitting on it, everyone else is doing the work, you're waiting for things to close up. Once your attorney receives confirmation of your mortgage approval, they move immediately to complete the title search. This is one of the most important stages of the transaction. When the title is found to be clean and there are no further requisitions by the attorney, a request for the draft conveyance is requested from the vendor's attorney to move to closing. And then there's stage 8. This is an exciting part for everyone involved. I imagine at this stage, we probably would have been a few months into the transaction process and working to get everything closed up for our clients. The final walkthrough is normally done a week away from closing with a ton of excitement brewing from the buyer, the seller, the attorneys, because they want to close everything up, the loan officer, and the real estate agent. When the conveyance is fully executed, the bank has released funds to the buyer's attorney, who then turns the funds over to the seller's attorney. Then the transaction is noted to be officially closed with the keys turned over. That is when we turn keys over. We give our client a really good closing gift. I don't know if all of the agents do it, but we do it. And we try to maintain a really good relationship with our clients even after the process of closing. So that was really exciting. And as I mentioned, so many persons that I begin to work with that are first coming into the real estate industry, they're not sure where to start, what information they need, where to go. This is the foundation that you need to know when you're first coming to the market as a first-time home buyer. So now I'm going to grab questions for anyone that may be a first-time home buyer, want to know how to maneuver. I'm here to answer for about, let's say, another 2 minutes. I think that was a very important part of the conversation. Let's see if we have any. Oh, Marissa, yeah, it can take much longer than 2 weeks. I am actually in a transaction now that I've been in for about maybe 3 years with a client who has been waiting to purchase a condo. This isn't how it normally is, but he placed this unit under contract for about, it was 3 years ago. This is a cash buyer. And as I mentioned, some things happen. You may have things fall off through the financing process. You may have things fall off through the legalities of things. This particular buyer has been holding on to purchase his condo all cash for 3 years, and he would not let it go, and he's hoping to close. So sometimes things could take 2 weeks on one end, and sometimes it could take 3 years. So Making certain title is clean when you bring in properties to market is a very important thing. I'm happy to help at any stage. So I'm going into the fun part. If no one else has any further questions on the transaction and coming into the market as a first-time home buyer. Hi, Darren. So if this is Darren Seymour at H.G. Christie, he's a colleague and a very, very good real estate agent as well. I would advise buyers, firstly, of course, as I mentioned in stage one, get pre-approved. While you're being pre-approved, the first thing, I think persons who come to the market, they already have a general idea, even before pre-approval, on where they want to be. They can already tell me, I want to be in the East, I want to be in the West, I want to be this way because, or that way because I don't want to be that way. So pre-approval and just getting a general idea of where you want to be, the location, and having a general idea, even though persons come to the market and they may not be pre-approved, they already have some idea of what they may be pre-approved for and what they may be able to spend. So that is always good. So definitely first-time buyer, stage one. And I'll have this information available at the end of this as well.
I have a question.
Hi, sure.
If someone has been pre-approved and say that they're interested in a piece of property as well as a single family home, and the amount that they were pre-approved for would cover both of them, is it possible for them to buy both at the same time?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, purchasing both properties at the same time is definitely an option once it's within the value you have been pre-approved for. I think the loan officer, the real estate agent, the attorney, everyone involved would be happy to get you through to purchasing both of those properties.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I have questions often for persons that may want to purchase property with their family members as well. Like, how do I purchase with my brother or my sister or my aunt? Like, that is also an option. Persons are able to invest with their family members. Once you bring that to the forefront and let your loan officer know what the intent is, they can walk you through the steps and share with you exactly how you can get to acquiring a piece of property with your family members. It happens all the time, and I think it is a great option. Sometimes there are properties on the market. There may be a townhouse development or a townhouse duplex for $450,000. You may want a side, and your brother may want the other side. You're qualified for $215,000, and he's qualified for the remaining balance. Rather than losing up on that property, which is likely in a really good location, the amount you're pre-approved for may not get you into that location, but together you guys can get into a really, really good community, then I would definitely bring that up with your loan officer and find ways where you can purchase properties together. So I'm just checking to see if I have any more questions before I move on to the topic of how to become a real estate agent. Yes, Darren, we have to get more clients to collaborate. That way we get to move more properties, persons can get into more homes. I have worked with a mother and a son who were both pre-approved for separate amounts. They wanted to be in a certain location, but like I mentioned, their budgets wouldn't allow them to be in that location separately. Once coming together, they were able to move in a really, really great community.
I have a question.
Hi.
What would you say about persons who work on commissions and
Now,
who's trying to buy a home?
okay. For persons that work on commission, I do know that financing institutions make it very, 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 very hard. I know that.
I know that. Mhm.
They make it extremely hard. I actually had a conversation with one of the executives at RBC recently, and they shared their reasoning for wanting to stick with the base amount for clients, for persons that may be making way more in commission, but a lesser amount on base. It's very difficult. I think it's really difficult in general because nearly 50% of Bahamian buyers, or 50% of Bahamians generally, work in tourism-related industries. So I would love to find ways where persons that should be able to qualify because they make more than their base pay, find ways for these persons or persons that make more in commission to actually be able to acquire property. It's really difficult. I have absolutely and honestly no answer to that because I know that the banks make it hard. I'm not certain of mortgage corporations' position on that because I do have clients that get mortgage approvals. Darren said try credit unions, but I do believe that private lending companies, mortgage corporations, credit unions will be able to, or maybe more lenient than a general commercial bank.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, there are so many more ways other than the General First Caribbean RBC Commonwealth Bank to get mortgage financing. There are more and more lending corporations that are coming up now to provide loans. I think Simplified Lending, which is owned by Robert Pantry, who was an executive at RBC, they may be willing. Actually, I'll reach out to see if they are open to financing for persons that are on commission base or highly paid in commission.
I think insurance companies, I see someone was writing insurance companies. Insurance companies have a lot of red tape also. Although, like you say, I worked in an insurance company. However, like I said, I still get a lot of red tape on getting or acquiring on a property. So, but like my, just saying, like my salary scale could be up, it doesn't matter. If I went to the bank, my salary scale could be up to sometimes $5,000 per month, but they still, it's a lot of red tape.
Yeah, I agree. Well, after this, I'm going to make it a point to reach out to a few persons I know and see if any other lending facilities would be open to financing for commission-based, higher paid commissions. I see another question as it relates to self-employed persons purchasing real estate. If you are self-employed and you want to purchase real estate, it is imperative to have your numbers in order. Financing institutions, when it comes to self-employed, they will lend, but they want to see a track record for a few years. I think it's about 2 to 3 years. They want to see that you're paying, you're accurately documenting expenses and revenue. They want to see that information. So it's not hard for a self-employed person to be financed. It's just important that you have the financial information from your business accurately represented so that you can present it to the banks. But it's not difficult. I'm really excited for all of this engagement I'm getting. This topic that we're getting into now, and I have these images of Frederick Eklund and Ryan Serhant, and I don't know the guy in the middle's name because he's a new star. this topic leads me into becoming a real estate agent. And I have the photos here because